All right, welcome everybody around the world. Welcome to all my subscribers. So hopefully I can get this video done before I get interrupted tonight. So I got a lot of verses to go through, so I'm going to try and make it quick. So I thought about how I could explain the synopsis right up front so people don't wait for a long wind up, right? So the basic gist of it is as follows. As I've talked about in my other videos, and like I talked about in my book, which is available on Amazon, save me bending over, pick it up right now. I've explained a million times, but just very, very quickly. We know Jesus died in 26 AD because King Artaxerxes gave the decree to rebuild Jerusalem street and wall in 457. From Daniel 9, you add forward the 483 years, and that gives you 26 AD. He was crucified 3 years after he was baptized, so he was baptized in 23 AD. Okay, and as I've explained in my book and in my many videos for years, 2,000 years after that will give you 2023 AD, which would be the final year. So what's the scriptural basis for believing that there would be these 2 days or 2,000 years? I've gone through it a million times. I've got the verses here again, though, from Hosea and elsewhere. But I don't want to keep yakking about that. This is going on the basis that there are those 2,000 years. So I'm not here to sit here and prove that part of it again, right? But I wanted to start off with a little explanation. So those 2,000 years, how can we be sure? Well, I was thinking outside the box tonight, and I decided to do a study on the keywords bride and groom in the marriage, right? So long story short, what I got here is all the occurrences of the term, bride or bridegroom in the New Testament. And what's the other one again? Uh, that's basically that. So I've narrowed it down. And the other one was a few for marriage. So when I read through these, like I'll do for this video here, I came across a little realization, well, quite a big realization. I wonder how many other Christians aren't aware of this and took it for granted too. But because we don't live in ancient Israelite society, we don't know what it was like when the Bible was written, and the imagery and everything that they use, even symbolism, that's ancient Israelite culture. We're not really accustomed to that. We can read about it all we want in the Bible, but we don't live it, right? So we don't know all those cultural customs that they were accustomed to. We take those things for granted. We don't really think about it too much. Now, something I learned today was the framework of when in ancient Israel, a husband and wife are to get married. So what I learned, and this was relevant to everything here, is that generally, it's not like it's a biblical rule, but generally their cultural tradition was that the ceremony, so to speak, the build-up would take 7 days. Okay, now that's not a key element here, but it is somewhat relevant because it helps pin everything down to the 7-day week and all of that. But that's one thing that I learned. It takes place over 7 days, but importantly, you have all this build-up before the people who are attending the wedding get to see the bride and the groom. Okay, so it's this huge buildup, and then blam comes the wedding day. And what happens then is the bridegroom will come out of his chambers, like we know from the New Testament, it says about Jesus, right? So the bridegroom will come out of his chambers, and the bride will come out of her closet or chambers, whatever the word is. Okay, they'll come out of their own little places, and they come together, and that is the day of the wedding. Okay, that's when everybody has the great feast, the wedding feast. I wasn't even sure when the wedding feast happened. I didn't know if it happened before, during, or after, right? But that's why I went and found all this stuff out. So you have that big build up. Then comes the day where the bride and the groom come out. They come together. There's the wedding. All the feasts happen and all that there. But the day before, people fast. It might be the bridegroom, might be everybody. But the point is, they fast. Now that's important. That's not something that I knew. Now, one of the verses, or a few of the verses, where Jesus reveals the great cosmic symbolism of the marriage feast and this and that, he talks about fasting. Now, most of us who aren't accustomed to that ancient tradition may not know those things. That was my point earlier. So that's something I learned. Maybe others need to learn as well. So there was a period of fasting. It's usually 1 day based on my research, but I'm looking for 2 days. But what I came to the realization was, saving the waffling how I got there, I'll just read the verses in the following order. So going on the premise of these 2 days, the 2,000 years after his baptism, when he was approved as Messiah, had defeated Satan at the not the judgment, the trial in the wilderness and all that, just got baptized. He's the official Messiah now, proclaimed, you are my son, all that there, go spread the gospel. He's going around doing miracles. From that point there, 2,000 years. So that's the starting premise. So where is the basis for this? Well, let's go check out this first verse here. So in Matthew 9:15, okay, well, for example, let me start off here. Some people might be thinking, oh, there might be hundreds of uses of those words. This helps your brain to wrap around everything. There's only about 27 results for bride in the whole of the Bible. Okay, only 15 from the New Testament. There's not really any relevant worth reading for this video from the Old. So there's really only 15 verses, right? And some of them aren't even, like in context here. And for the search results for marriage, there's only 26 in the whole Bible and 22 in the New Testament. So there aren't hundreds of verses to go through for this stuff. And that's actually good because this helps narrow down what we should ascertain from this theologically. Okay, so in Matthew 9, let's go back to that one real quick. This is the first one of the lineup for New Testament uses of the term bride, which also include bridegroom, because in the original translation, there isn't the use of the word groom doesn't exist. It's just bridegroom, right? So in this lineup, we have broom. In this lineup, we have the bride and the bridegroom, not the broom. Okay, so in Matthew 9:15, Jesus said to them, "Can the sons of the bride chamber mourn so long as the bridegroom is with them? But days shall come when the bridegroom shall be taken from them, and they shall fast." So I don't even need to read more of the verses there of the chapter. The key thing to take away from that is he's talking about this period of fasting. Now, every Christian's heard this a million times. We have our own ideas or what our churches might teach. But I bet a lot of us didn't know, like me included, that customarily they would fast the day before the big reveal. Okay, and it makes sense because it's like me nowadays, my family. We're not rich or anything. If we're going to go to a fancy restaurant, my mom will say, "Oh, don't eat breakfast." You know what I mean? Don't eat breakfast. Don't eat lunch. Save up for the dinner, right? Make sure you eat it all, get your money's worth, but also out of respect. You know what I mean? If you're going to this big lavish wedding feast, you want to pig out before you go there and have no appetite. Those people spend all that money and effort making all that nice food for you at the feast, and you're just sitting there eating a few French fries. They're not going to be too happy, right? So that's probably why I became accustomed to fast. You know what I mean? Not like starve and afflict yourself, but to fast before you go to the wedding. So that's what Jesus was talking about there. But how long would we have to fast for? Well, it's been 2,000 years now. So we know one thing for sure. It's not going to be less than 2,000 years. It's not going to be one day. So is it 1 day? Is it 2 days? Is it 3 days? Is it 4 days? Well, we know the week is 7 days. And the wedding celebrations typically lasted for a week. And the last day was the big reveal day. So you had all those days of buildup. Now, I don't think, using common sense, people are going to be starving themselves for multiple days, right? So I think it's fair to say, is it 1? Is it 2? Well, this is the beauty of the following thing. There's a verse where Jesus said the following. He was rebuking the rabbis. Jesus made some statement. I've talked about these verses so many times. It's like I'm just repeating myself over and over. But this is a time where he's having a confrontation with the rabbis. And this is, to keep things simple, this is his response. Okay? He says, "Having gone, say to this fox, lo, I cast forth demons and perfect cures today and tomorrow." That's the 2 days. Today, that'd be the first 1,000 years. So Jesus is on earth here between 23 and 26 AD making this statement. I don't exactly know when, maybe after his baptism, maybe a few years after. But you get my point. He made that point there. So that's the first 1,000 days, first 1,000 years. And then the tomorrow would represent the second 1,000 years. And then he says, "On the third day, I'm being perfected." So then I thought, let me go look up the Greek original word there. It's not perfected. It's what that word actually means and represents is completed, right? So if you had a big project and you finished it all off, then it's perfected. It means completed. Okay, so he says, "On the third day, I am being perfected." Now, bear with me here. Like I said, we all know that they're going to fast. Jesus said the people are going to fast when he's not here on earth. The question is, how long will he not be on earth for? Well, we know it's been 2,000 years. That's my point. So we're looking at 2 days. Could probably logically rule out 3 days of fasting, but this is where we can prove the 2 days instead of 3 days, right? So we know it's not 1. The question remains, is it 2 or 3 days? This is how we know it's 2. Okay, so he says, "On the third day, I am being completed." Now, this whole talk is about a marriage ceremony. What happens when the man marries his wife? The two become one, they become complete. So, if this whole story is about him, it's all about his wedding day. That's the big thing. That's the big thing going on. That's the moment of completion when the two come together and become one. That's when he's completed. All the things he's been working on, the big project, isn't come to completion, to perfection. That's what that means. Okay? So we know that there's going to be a period of fasting. There must be at least 2,000 years. Okay? And on the third day is when the completion, the marriage would happen. So if we go to Hosea 6 at this point, it says in verse 2 famously, it says, he does revive us after 2 days. In the third day, he does raise us up, and we live before him. So there's the justification for it being 2 days. Okay? Now, not only that, hold on, this blinking cat's going to drive me nuts. Why do you come in and then meow to go right back out? Doesn't make any sense. Cat always does that. He meows to come in, then just sits there and meows to go right back out. So, anyways, that's the justification for 2-day period, right? So it says after 2 days, and it says in the third day. Now, traditionally, Judaism and Christianity have believed that this references 2,000 years. Okay, Judaism, of course, doesn't believe in Jesus, so they're not going to take it from anything to do with a point in Jesus's timeline. You know what I mean? They're not going to even believe in that to start with. But for Christians, some people have, touted the idea of this 2,000-year period. But I don't think anybody's clued in like I did to the fact if you take it from the baptismal point. But it links into many other things, right? It's not just that simple. Many other things in my book here, right? So it's a lot more significant than it sounds. But nonetheless, we have that mention there of the 2 days and on the third day. So how about all these other mentions here, right? So like Jesus said, on the third day, I'm being completed. Okay. And then all the countless references where it said that on the third day he will rise. Now, I know that's talking about his resurrection, but if you yourself search the Bible for second day or 2 days or third day and 3 days, like I have, there are really not that many results. Okay. So for example, this is the search for a third day. There's only 58, and that's not even in quotes, really. Oh, on this search program, you can't use quotes anymore. It doesn't work. It does work now. So it narrows it down to 50. So there's only 50 occurrences in a book that has thousands and thousands and thousands of words. I mean, beyond thousands, probably like a million. Wouldn't surprise me. Right? So, but yet, when we go look in the New Testament, for example, this is how many are about he will rise on the third day. Now, again, I'm just saying that there's a hidden parallel here. He's talking about, yeah, I will physically come back on the third day. But check this out where I'm going with this here. On the third day to rise, from Matthew 16:21, Matthew 17:23, on the third day he shall rise. Matthew 20:19, on the third day he will rise again. And then, where is it? Matthew 27:64, you can even read into this. The sepulcher was to be made secure until the third day. And then Mark 9:31, the third day he shall rise. Mark 10:34, the third day he shall rise again. Luke 9:22, and the third day to be raised. The reason why I'm stressing this is because it says on the third in countless examples. Now, some skeptics might pull out a few verses that I've come across amidst these lists where the way it's worded in the translations, it says after 3 days. There's only a few of those. There are tons that specify on the third, and combined with the fact that Hosea 6, the famous one, says after 2 days in the third day. So it's not after 3 days. And that's how we can rule out 3 days of fasting. Comprende? So it's only 2 days of fasting. You fast for 2 days, and then the bridegroom will come out of the closet. The bride will come out. Now, the other thing to remember is this. I think most Christians have these ideas floating in their head, but they don't have a clear consensus of it for their own understanding. Everybody considers, the spiritual Israel Christians. Everybody has these ideas about that. Let's put the fluff aside for a second. Look at something clear cut straight from the verses. It clearly says, I'll read the verses in their time, that the bride will be the heavenly Jerusalem that comes down out of heaven. Like it says that in like 3 verses, maybe 4. Okay, so that's abundantly clear. And it is called the bride. Okay, Jesus is the groom. So who's the bride that he's marrying? Everybody thinks, oh, it's Israel on earth. It's the spiritual Israel. It's the Christians. Maybe it is elements of that, but it does explicitly say that his bride is made ready for the groom and comes down out of the heavens, and that it is the heavenly Jerusalem. So again, just there are parallels everywhere, but that is by definition the primary example. So his bride is the heavenly Jerusalem. Now this makes sense because Jesus, the bridegroom, was with us with the party goers who are going to attend the wedding up in the heavens. So when he came down on earth, he's the bridegroom. The wedding is off into the future, a few days off, a few thousand years off into the future. But he came down here to gather some party goers. Like, hey, you want to come to my wedding? Only good people can come to my wedding. Then he told everybody in Matthew 9, hey, I'm going to go away and then you're going to fast. You're happy now while you're with me, but when I go away, everybody's going to fast and then you're going to be sad. Okay? For days, he said. How many days was the great question. So we got the evidence that it should be 2 days, right? If you combine that with the other evidence, like I give in my book and my other videos, the fact that there are 2,000 years from his baptism until now, 2023, by the way, like I show in my book, is meticulously the end of the 6,000 years. It's all mapped out in my book, dot for dot. There's not even wiggle room of 1 year error. There's no wiggle room at all. It's completely mapped out, concise, 6,000 years. 2023 is the final of those 6,000 years. So that gives more substantiation to the fact that, 2,000 years after his baptism in 23 lands on 2023. That is far more significant when you understand that 2023 is the end of the 6,000 years. Okay? So by that logic, we only have a 2,000-year window after he was baptized until the end. And like I showed in my book and in my video from the other day, 2,000 years divides perfectly into 3 units of 666.666. When Jesus was baptized in 23 AD, 666 years later, 0.666, the Dome of the Rock, which is the abomination, was built on the Temple Mount. As I go through, that is profoundly important to all the prophecies I talk about in my book, and I've been talking about for years on YouTube. Okay, so 666 years after Jesus defeated Satan at the temptation, we got the Dome of the Rock, the abomination, built on the Temple Mount. And then, if you multiply 666.666 times 2, you get 1,335. If you add the 1,330, which is the other time period Daniel was told about from God, that would lead you up until the very end. At the end of the day, the mathematics, 2,000 divided by 666.666 equals 3. So there are 3 units of time that are, in essence, 666. From when Jesus defeated Satan. So Jesus defeated Satan, then turned around and got baptized. Okay? Satan was so ticked off, you in essence get these 3 periods of 666. Follow me? The first period, bam, the abomination that was foretold. Then you get the 2 more periods that add up to the 1335, which God told Daniel about verbatim to the number. Bam, that leads you up to the end. Okay, so you have all these other external justifications for that 2,000-year period in 2023. So it's far more than just saying, oh, Jesus baptized in 23, and 2,000 years later is the current year that we're in. You follow me? There's a ton of substantiation to the fact that 2023 is the final year. This only further corroborates it, right? So we have all this mentions that on the 3rd day he will rise. So when you combine all this understanding together, yes, Jesus was saying that after he dies, he'll be raised on the 3rd day. But we also have to factor in that he could be talking about on a parallel as well. After 2 days, he will rise on the 3rd day. On the 3rd day, he is being completed, like he said. On the 3rd day is the marriage, therefore, by that reasoning that I aforementioned. Okay, so that would be our logical proof that we had 2 days, i.e. 2,000 years, from when Jesus was announcing these things until when the great resultant thing occurs, which is the wedding. And he will come out from the heavens, come down to us and say, hey, everybody, come on, I'm getting married. What is all this symbolizing? It's him bringing us up to the heavens, and him and the bride, which is the heavenly Jerusalem. It's everybody becoming one family. So the bride and the marriage is just symbolism that the Bible, the biblical narrative, is used, that God wanted us to use. But that is the underlying thing that's actually occurring. It's about him coming down to take us from this miserable world, those who are worthy, bring us up to this better world, to be with God up in the heavenly Jerusalem and everything. Okay, so that's the underlying message there. So if we go back and read these verses really quickly, because I think they should be read. So these are the mentions of bride, bridegroom, and marriage, right? Now I'll go through them really quickly. I'll just read the little excerpts, not the entire thing. So in Matthew 9:15, like Jesus said, he said to them, "Can the sons of the bride chamber mourn so long as the bridegroom is with them? But days shall come when the bridegroom shall be taken from them, and they shall fast." And then in Matthew 25, verse 1, this is the famous parable about the 10 virgins. So then the reign of the heavens shall be like in the 10 virgins who haven't taken their lamps, went forth to meet the bridegroom. So now that I explained the cultural aspect to this, that's when the bridegroom is on the day of revealing. That's when he's about to come out, okay? Which would be equated to the return of Jesus, right? So we go back to, where was it? Matthew 25. Went forth to meet the bridegroom, and 5 of them were prudent and 5 foolish. And they who were foolish, having taken their lamps, did not take with themselves oil. And the prudent took oil with their vessels and with their lamps. And the bridegroom tarrying, meaning that he took a long time. Well, 2,000 years is a long time. They all nodded and were sleeping. And sleeping is the same word that Jesus used, teaching us, like I mentioned in my books and my videos. If you're not ready, waiting and watching and knowing when this is all coming, he calls that being asleep. God does, Jesus does, and the disciples do, the apostles do, is biblical theology. If you're not waiting, you're not ready, waiting, and watching, you are asleep. Is verbatim defined as that. Okay, so when the bridegroom tarrying, meaning Jesus taking a long time to come back, 2,000 years, they all nodded and were sleeping. In the middle of the night, a cry was made, "Lo, the bridegroom does come." So this is the great day of reveal. He and the bride are coming out. Okay, go ye forth to meet him. So this is the arrival, the return of Jesus they're talking about. And it says, "Then rose all those virgins and trimmed their lamps." So this would be all the Christians and all those who want to be in heaven, right? They'll get up eager to go up with Jesus. And then the foolish said to the prudent, "Give us of your oil because our lamps are going out." So some of them realize they're probably not going to get to go to heaven, and they start to panic, right? And then it says, "And the prudent answered," sorry. So they ask those who are going to go up, "Let us have some of your oil, your Holy Spirit," in essence, right? Because that symbolizes. And the prudent answered, saying, "Lest there may not be sufficient oil for us and you, go ye rather unto those selling and buy for yourselves." And while they were going away to buy, the bridegroom came. So that is the verbatim, the actual arrival of Jesus at this point here. The bridegroom, they just went out to meet him before. This is when the bridegroom came. And those ready, one of the key words I mentioned, ready, waiting, and watching, right? And those ready went in with him to the marriage feast, and the door was shut. And this is something else I learned reading about the culture aspect to Israelite marriage and all of that. They had their big week-long ceremony. They did the fasting for a day. Then they had the great reveal. The bride and the groom come out. Everybody gets together. They have the wedding. They have the great feast and all that. But when the bride and groom come out and they gather in all the guests, the doors are shut. Okay? So, you're going. I'm on the live stream. Hold on. I'll cover the camera real quick. Just knock when you come past and I'll do it again. Anyways, almost finished. So the door was shut. That's where I was up to. So at that point there, everybody goes into the party and the door is shut and nobody else is let in. Okay, we know about that from other places in the New Testament, right? So going back to Matthew 25, and the door was shut. Then afterwards come also to the rest of the virgins, saying, "Sir, sir, open to us." And he answering said, "Verily I say to you, I have not known you." And he says, "Watch, therefore." The other key word that I mentioned earlier, be ready, waiting, and watching, right? "Watch, therefore, for you have not known the day or the hour in which the Son of Man does come." Nobody here is talking about the day or the hour. We're just talking about, you got to read my book to see about the year, the period of years. It's not about the day or hour. So it says, then he goes off into another parable, so I don't need to read that one. So that's the big parable from Matthew 25. So going back to the original list, we get to Mark 2:19 next. And Jesus said to them, "Are the sons of the bride chamber able while the bridegroom is with them to fast?" So long, it's the same thing as before, just in a parallel gospel. That's all. In verse 20, it says, "When the bridegroom will be taken from them, then they shall fast in those days." So it's the same thing. Luke 5:34 is just basically talking about the same thing again. No point reading it. Same with 5:35. And then John 2:9 is about the miracle where Jesus turned the water to wine. And John 3:29, this one's important. John identified Jesus as the bridegroom, right? So that ties everything together here. So it's not just wild speculation on my behalf. So he says in 3:29, he who is having the bride is the bridegroom. So that's saying that Jesus has the heavenly Jerusalem. And the friend of the bridegroom who is standing and hearing him, that's the partygoers who are going to attend the wedding, with joy do rejoice because of the voice of the bridegroom. This then, my joy has been fulfilled. And then finally, we're down to the final verses in Revelation. So there's 4 in here that mention bride and bridegroom. So in Revelation 18:23 is just about how there's going to be doom and destruction, and it's a negative context. And then Revelation 21:2, it's basically irrelevant, in other words. And I, John, saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of the heaven, made ready as a bride adorned for her husband. So that's the verse that I referenced earlier. Revelation 21:9. Sorry if there's something in my mouth there. I apologize. Maybe there wasn't. In Revelation 21:9, come, I will show thee the bride of the Lamb, the wife. This is a reference to heavenly Jerusalem again. And Revelation 22:17, and the Spirit and the bride say, come, and he who is hearing, let him say, come, and he who is thirsting, let him come, and he who is willing, let him take the water of life freely. That's Jesus in the heavenly Jerusalem saying that to us. Excuse me. So that's a list for bride and bridegroom. So just again to check, groom doesn't have any results in the Bible. Bridegroom, this is 22, and I'm pretty sure these are, unless their search engine, their program is invalid. I'm just skim down. Yeah, they're all the same. Yep, they're all the same. So that's a comprehensive going through of all those verses, reading all the relevant ones. And then finally, the last thing to do is the search for marriage. So in Matthew 22, Matthew 22 has probably got like 1/3 of all the mentions here of the term. So I wouldn't need to read it all, but I recommend that you guys go read it. Matthew 22, right? Starts from verse 1, goes all the way up to, looks like verse, let's see, all the way up to like verse 12. No, you know what? I might as well read it. It's not that many verses. And Jesus answering again spake to them in similes, saying, the reign of the heavens is likened to a king who made marriage feast for his son. And he sent forth his servants to call those having been called to the marriage feast. That was the party goers, like I said. And they were not willing to come. That's reference to Israel. And again, he sent forth other servants, saying, say to those who have been called, lo, my dinner I prepared, my oxen and the fatlings have been killed, and all things are ready. Come ye to the marriage feast. And they, having disregarded it, went away, the one to his own field and the other to his merchandise. And the rest, having laid hold on his servants, did insult and slay them. And the king, having heard, was wroth, and having sent forth the soldiers, he destroyed those murderers in their city, he set on fire. Then saith he to his servants, the marriage feast indeed is ready, and those called were not worthy. Be going then unto the crossways, and as many as you find, call ye to the marriage feast. This is a reflection of what Jesus did. He came here to save the sinner, right? To basically gather people up for the wedding party, right? In essence, right? Call ye to the marriage feast. And those servants having gone, and I don't need to keep reading from there. That's Matthew 22. And then going down the list here, we have that one's irrelevant. That's about the days of Noah. And Matthew 25, I think I already read that one. Yeah, so that's just a repeat. So Mark, nope, nothing from Mark. Nothing from Luke. And then in John, nope, nothing in John. And the last two relevant ones are in Revelation. So Revelation 19:7, may we rejoice and exult and give glory to him, because come did the marriage of the Lamb, and his wife did make herself ready. So that's just further reinforcement that when they come out of their, when it's their great reveal, they come out of their places with the heavenly Jerusalem, and when Jesus arrived, that's the time of the great marriage. They're coming out, and at that point, culturally, is when they would call all the party goers to come attend the wedding, and that's when it would happen, right? And then in Revelation 19:9, and he saith to me, right happy are they who to the supper of the marriage of the Lamb have been called, and he saith to me, These are the true words of God. Oh, wow. That just reminded me of the one and only vision that I had of Jesus, because he said to me, Come home and eat supper with me. I didn't really think about it from this one perspective here, the supper of the marriage. I never thought about it from that perspective. I just thought about it in the general context, like come home and, eat the bread of wisdom or something. But that's interesting. Maybe he was getting me ready. Wow. But anyways, I do believe I've read all the verses. I'm just double checking. No, there is this one here. In John 2:19, I should have just read this one before, but it says, Jesus answered and said to them, Destroy the sanctuary, which is his body, and in 3 days I will raise it up. That's just another one to verify, and it's from his own mouth, that it's not after 3 days. He says in 3 days, just like all the other ones that said in 3 days. It's not after, it's on the third, just like Hosea said on the third. So, anyways, folks, that's it for now. I got to get going, so I hope you all find it interesting. Yep, that's right. Ephesians 5:25. I just closed the Bible program down before I saw that. I'll check that out afterwards. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. I urge you all, believe me, you will thoroughly enjoy it. Urge you to get my book. It's only $11.11. It's pretty cheap. Nice quality book. It's not a cheap quality book. A lot of hard work. More importantly, the biblical discoveries are priceless. 4 of my own unique discoveries to back up the dating for this, right? So, anyways, I don't want to sound like a salesman, but I can't telepathically transmit my studies into people's brains. Like, I can make videos like I have for years warning about this. I did all the effort to put it into a book. There you go. Right? So, anyways, God bless you all. Everybody take care.